right, so let's get into UAV world here. All right. So UAV and UAS, you're going to see that these terms are pretty much interchangeable, and we'll go through the definitions of the differences here. But when we look at UAS, which is unmanned aerial systems, these are some things that we could actually kind of find within that hemisphere. Okay. The ones that we are most probably are most likely to see in the civilian world, if you're just kind of doing this for fun, would be probably like a DJI, what you see on the left-hand side, which is considered a quadcopter. They have more advanced ones if you're, potentially using it for agriculture or basically for movies or those types of things, the hexacopter, and then even the classic Predator drones that we are typically usually seeing for fixed wing type things. So most of the military flies the fixed wing side of the house, high speed, high altitude, far better capability than anything else. So, but the UAS overall covers a wide gamut and range of basically different equipment moving forward. So you're gonna once again hear all of these different terms when we're talking about UAS, UAV. We also then talk about the Part 107. Are you a Part 107 pilot? Are you not Part 107? Part 107 just refers to basically this class and how it refers to the commercial side of the house. And at the end of the day, your license from the FAA is going to be something known as a remote pilot license. And that basically means that you have commercial, abilities or authority to operate commercially within this set of regulations. Part 107 basically just refers to the Part 107 of the Federal Aviation Regulations, which are those 12 to 14 pages that I mentioned. So at the end of the day, once you guys take your FAA written exam, you'll see this on a license. This license will get mailed to you, and you'll see this thing that says remote pilot. So when do you actually need this license? Okay, so as per the FARs, the Federal Aviation Regulations, they are going to tell us and basically give us information to determine if we will be operating our drone for recreational flying, such as like a hobby, or if it's going to be for commercial purposes. So as per this regulation, which is 101.41, anytime that you guys see the 101 point something or 107 point something, that's just for your reference. You don't need to memorize that number. That means that you can actually go to Google and put in FAR 101.41. I have not cut and paste a lot of these because any of the regulations from the FAA are typically they have a lot of legalese in them, and they're not the easiest to read. But if you want to read directly from the FAA, those regulations are there for you. So the first thing that we need to look at is to be considered a model aircraft, it must meet the following: be strictly for hobby or commercial use, be operated in accordance with the community-based set of safety guidelines and within the programming of a nationwide community-based organization, not weigh more than 55 pounds. You're going to see that number quite frequently, unless certified through design. Be operated in a manner that does not interfere with and gives way to any manned aircraft, and you cannot fly within 5 miles of an airport unless the operator provides prior notice to the airport operator and airport air traffic control tower if applicable. Okay. If you intend to operate in commercial or non-recreational missions, then you must gain the remote pilot certification, which allows you to act as remote pilot in command. And the Part 107 that we've been discussing or will discuss here after the break, that is what it's referring to. So if you're going to go beyond any one of these bullet points we've talked about, then you're going to start to move from the recreational hobby side into the commercial side. And even if you were going to be just flying around for a hobby, it doesn't hurt you to get a remote pilot license at the end of the day. A little bit later, we will be talking more specifically about if you are a currently licensed or you hold an FAA license of some type from a pilot side. There's two different ways to get your remote pilot license. Everything in this course is basically going to be designed for the brand new individual who has no FAA experience in an airplane, helicopter, anything along those lines that does want to get their remote pilot license. All right, so your types of UAS operations. We have our recreational operations on the left-hand side. So One of the things you're going to notice that you do have to register your drone if it is over 0.55 pounds. That's the magic number there, but it's got to be less than 55 pounds. If you are flying next to airports, you do need to notify them with air traffic control anytime you're 5 miles from those locations. And then your operating rules on the recreational side is you have to give way to all manned aircraft. You have to keep visual line of sight, which basically means the drone is in your eye line at all times. You have to follow community-based safety guidelines, and then the education or recreational flying, that's the only thing there. And then on the right-hand side, that is going to be your Part 107. So this is where you need to be 16 years of age or older. You will go through a quick TSA vet. It's basically an automated background check by the TSA when you submit your application. The drone has to be between, or not between, but less than 55 pounds. And if it's over 0.55 pounds, it has to be registered. You have to undergo a pre-flight check. We'll talk more about the airspace, but you will need air traffic control permission, and there is no limitation if you're flying next to the airport or 5 miles or 10 miles away from the airport. We have some general rules that we'll be talking about more specifically after the break here. So you have to keep your aircraft in visual line of sight unless you use a visual observer. You have to keep it under 400 feet. You must fly, and this one's a new one. This is actually slow. This is changing, and we'll talk about how that's changing. In the past, you had to fly during daylight hours. Now, as of tomorrow, you can actually fly at night as long as you have the new training by the FAA. You have to keep it at 100 miles per hour or less. You got to yield to manned aircraft. You cannot overfly people, but there's a new regulation for that one that we'll be talking about. And same thing, flying from a moving vehicle. So the main difference is that you can actually fly for commercial purposes. So in the event that you are a real estate photographer, or maybe you're in the agriculture side of the house, whatever it may be, you can use your drone now to basically for compensation or hire at this point as well. Okay. So common utilizations that we typically see, real estate agents. This is fairly common where they're taking photos using a drone, trying to get the outside perspective of a property. Farmers are using these systems, as you can see here, for basically precision agriculture. They'll also actually use it for imaging, so that way they can see, you know, how to best, you know, work their land, if you will. I'm not a farmer, so however they say it. We also use it for search and rescue functions, primarily in Civil Air Patrol. That's their big push right now. So we can use it for looking for lost hikers or missing animals. We can also use it in emergency situations as well. Scientists are actually using these to basically monitor the environment, study animal life, and collect other types of data. And then mostly what we think about when it comes to drone is security and law enforcement personnel, and then also primarily the military as well. Okay, so remember, at the end of the day, we will be covering these in detail. And with that, I'm going to ask you your first FAA test question. Please remember, if you are on Facebook or YouTube, just go ahead and do not answer in the chat. Ryan will kindly remind you, if you know the answer, write it down on a piece of paper. If you are on our website, it will become live in 1 second. So if you end up going below the chat function, you're going to see a little button that says open poll. All right, so here's the first one. You are operating a 1,280 gram or 2.8 quadcopter for your own enjoyment. What FAA regulation is this SUAS operation subject to? Is it Part 107, Part 48, or this operation is not subject to FAA regulations? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. We got 54% with A, we've got 12% with B, and the balance of the class, 33% with C. So a couple of things that we want to look at when we are looking at this potential question here. We'll look at the weight, so we know that it's over 0.55 pounds. And the key here is that this is for your own enjoyment. It's not for commercial purposes, right? So commercial purposes is really referencing the Part 107, so that's not it. And remember that anything over 0.55 pounds actually needs to be registered and marked appropriately. So that is specifically referencing Part 48. I briefly said it, but the correct answer here is Part 48 regulation. So once again, really anything over 0.55 pounds or greater, and you're just doing it for your own enjoyment, no matter what, is going to basically fall under this regulation, which is the Section 48 or Part 48, which is dealing with registration and marking requirements for the SUAS. Okay, and that's actually honestly whether you're using it for work, pretty much whether for work or for your own enjoyment. Anytime that we see the regulations, you're going to see that it will normally start with a 14 Code of Federal Regulations. Section 14 or Title 14 is going to reference a larger body. So this basically covers the FAA and also NASA, and then pretty much anything with aeronautics in it will be Section 14. And then the part is going to be the part of the Federal Aviation Regulation that we are specifically referencing.